Can you guys hear me? Okay. So good morning and afternoon and evening to all our panelists and
Hello.
all our viewers in all your respective countries. My name is Nyanthan Hothmai. I'm a researcher at the Sud Institute and a passionate women's rights advocate. I'm your moderator for today. Our topic of discussion today is going to be about child labor and street children. With me in the studio today are five amazing women. Here we have Honorable Mary Hilary Wani. We have Honorable Rose Polino. We have Dr. Victoria Stephen Majur. We have Ms. Veronica Igale. We have Ms. Dora Ponilora. And we have our sixth panelist. She'll join us as soon as she gets in the studio. Our topic today, as I've just said before I read the bio of our incredible panelists, we are talking about child labor. And here, what we mean by that is that child labor is work done by children that harms them or exploit them in any way, either physically, mentally, morally, or blocking them from accessing their education. According to South Sudan Child Labor Act, that states no person shall engage or permit the engagement of a child under the age of 14 years to perform works defined under the Section 13 as worst form of work. What is worst form of work, you may ask? These are, just to give you a brief of what they are, all form of slavery or practices similar to slavery, such as trafficking of children, debt bondage and serfdom, forced or compulsory labor, and forced compulsory recruitment of children for use in the armed conflict. That's one example of worst form of work. Second one is the use or procurement of children for prostitution or for the production of pornography or for pornographic performance. That is under the act is considered as worst form of work. Third, the use, procurement, or offer of a child for illicit activities, in particular for the production and trafficking of drugs as defined in international treaties as rectified by the government. That's the fourth example of what it means for worst form of work. The last one is work by its nature or circumstances in which it's carried out is likely to harm the health, safety, or moral of the child. So these are some of the examples of the worst form of work that harmed the children. Because of the civil war we've known in the last few years, so the hunger fueled by a protracted civil war and failed economy has pushed many children into labor or into life on the streets. Children on the streets, as I can call them, homeless children, live on the street for a sheer necessity for survival. The United Nations says around 19,000 children have been recruited, many by force, by armed groups in the civil war that started in 2013. According to the UN Children Agency UNICEF, 70% of the children are out of school and 4.2 million children need help. In capital Juba alone, there's around 3,000 children that are homeless, and that number is increasing every day. Some of the driving factors, and I'm sure our panelists will dive into these as well. Some of the what is driving children to be homeless are family breakups, are polygamy practices, and negligence. And there have been an increase every day of the homeless children. Without further ado, let me introduce to you our panelists. And here I'll start. I'll start here with Ms. Veronica Igala Manoja, who is a lawyer by profession. She has a bachelor degree of law from Uganda Christian University. She has a master's degree in international relations from United States International University with a major in peace and conflict. She is formerly the executive director of Education Foundation for Children, which is a local NGO. She is a certified training in gender equality and diversity in management from Eastern and Southern African Institute of Management. She is currently doing a course for professional in child protection from Makerere University. Next, we have Ms. Dora Ponilora. She is a social worker with further studies in trauma-informed care. She has a master's degree in child welfare. She is currently employed in the Child Welfare Service for an unaccompanied refugee minor in Bergen Municipality and is engaged in various boards and NGOs. In 2013, Dora was awarded the Top 10 Immigrants Award by Leadership Foundation, and in 2010, she was awarded the Women in Focus Award by Positive Education. Dora is a mother of two and is passionate about youth and women empowerment, cross-cultural parenting, immigration challenges, and active participant and representation of minorities in the Norwegian society. Further, we have, let me just pull out, we have here Honorable Mary. Let me just pull out this. So we have Honorable Mary with us here today. So Honorable Mary is the Undersecretary for the Ministry of Labor. Just one second, let me just pull Honorable Mary. Let me just pull your... Yes, so here we have Honorable Mary Heleriwani. Honorable Mary has a bachelor degree in accounting in Juba University. She has a master's in development planning at the University of Juba. She's currently the Undersecretary for the Ministry of Labor. She has worked with various UN agencies. She worked with UNDP, World Food Program, IRC, and JTZ. And now this brings us to our discussion for today. And my first question goes to, so our first question goes to Veronica. Veronica, what are the national and international law relating to child labor in South Sudan? And which of the international law on children are already rectified in South Sudan? To you, Veronica. Veronica, can you hear me? Okay. It seems that Veronica has, okay, we'll come back to her. So I'll go to you, Honorable Mary.
Hear me?
Okay, yes, we can. Yes. Yes, we can. Okay, we can.
Okay, I'm back. Can you hear me? Okay, yes. Can you please repeat the question? I didn't get.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Veronica?
Now I can hear you. I wasn't hearing you before.
Okay. So my question here is, what are the national and international law relating to child labor in South Sudan? Can you hear me?
National laws, international laws.
Yeah, national
breaking.
Law.
National laws.
Okay. Let me go to somebody else and I'll come to you, Ms. Veronica.
Okay.
Honorable Mary, can you hear me? I'll come back to you, Veronica. So, Honorable Mary, does the Ministry of Labor? Yes. Does the Ministry of Labor has Child Labor Act? What does it say is about children?
The Ministry of Labor does not have the Child Act, but it is the Ministry of Gender that is responsible for the Child Act. We have the Labor Act in general, and it talks about the minimum age for voting, and again it talks about the worst forms of hazardous labor. Yeah. And in your introduction, you talk about the sections. We have section 12 of the Labor Act 2017. There is an echo. I don't know how.
Guys, can we all make sure we mute ourselves so that we don't have an echo? Just make sure that you've muted on yourself. Okay. Continue.
So the Labor Act 2017, Section 12 talks about the minimum age for a child to be engaged in work, and it says that the age of 12, a child can be engaged in work that is not hazardous, like vocational training, work that entails him to learn something. So that is allowed. And from the age of 14, also a child can be engaged in labor, but not something that is that can harm his health. And we have, like in South Sudan, most of the children are engaged in agricultural work or helping in the house, or again in herding the cattle, and sometimes in fishing also. So fishing is one of the hazardous work for a child, and yeah, because it endangers the life of the child. A child can get drowned or can be pulled by anything in the river. So this is considered hazardous. And also herding cattle is very hard for a child. And these are the type of works that we are involved in. But of course, it has a cultural dimension. From our different cultures, there are the pastoralists who keep cattle, and that is the way of bringing up their children. Yeah, but as labor, we need to enlighten and create awareness on which work they should involve children in and which work they should not involve children. Briefly, this is what I can say.
Okay. So okay, thank you so much, I'll come back to you, Honorable. Let me go to Veronica. Veronica, so the question here is, what are the national and international law relating to child labor in South Sudan? I'm sure Honorable has already mentioned some of this, but please can you share with us your views on this?
Thank you. Then I'll first start with the international laws relating to which mentions what child labor is. And the first one is the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. This convention spells out the basic rights to which children everywhere are entitled to. And the convention is categorized into 4 themes. And one of the themes is the protection rights of children. And that's under protection rights is where child labor falls under. I'll mention specifically Article 32 and 33. It provides that governments everywhere should protect children from dangerous work which might harm their health or education. The next one I'll go to is the African Charter. The African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. It also mentions, it has provisions on protection of children from labor, which is not conducive for their age or their development. Article 22 specifically of this act provides or prohibits, given our setting in Africa, conflict and the like. Article 22 prohibits the recruitment of children into armed conflicts, and this provision specifically has an additional optional protocol to the UNCRC that prohibits the involvement of children in armed conflict. And the second optional protocol is also on the sale of children, prostitution, and pornography. That is another international instrument. These two optional protocols are additional to the main UNCRC Convention on the Rights of the Child. When we move to the International Labour Organization Convention, there are two main conventions. There's Convention 182 and Convention 138. Now, Convention 182 sets the minimum age for which children should be engaged in gainful employment, and Convention 138. Convention 138 sets the minimum age for admission into employment, and then Convention 182 identifies and predefines what is considered as the worst forms of child labor. These are the basic international instruments that mentions or that prohibits child labor. And I'd like to mention that South Sudan has ratified the UNCRC. It has ratified the African Charter on the Rights of the Child. However, it has not ratified the optional protocol 1, which is on prohibition of involving children in armed conflict, and it has also not ratified optional protocol 2, which is on the sale of children and child prostitution and pornography. Now, when we go to national laws, I'll start with the Constitution, which sets the minimum age of who a child, and the minimum age of a child as per the Constitution is 18 years. 18 years is defined as the age of a child. Then from there, I move to the Child Act. The Child Act already earlier on you read out what is considered to be child labor, or what is considered to be harmful to children when it comes to labor. But then we also say that the Child Act is mostly a replica of the UNCRC. It came in as a result of the fact that South Sudan ratified the UNCRC. So domesticating the UNCRC led to or gave birth to the Children's Act of 2008. I will not mention because you've already mentioned what is considered as hard work for children, but you also mentioned that it sets the minimum age of admission to gainful employment at 14 years, but it also sets a minimum age for light work for children at 12 years of age. And then the labor, I go to the labor bill. It's another law, national law, that regulates labor in the country, and Honorable Mary had already spoken about it. And I will not delve so much into that, but I would like to bring out the fact that in Article 23 of the Labor Act, first of all, the Labor Act gives the age 16 as the minimum age. If you notice, the Child Act gives 14, the Labor Act gives 16, and then we have the Constitution saying the age of a child is at 18 years. So if we try to reconcile this, I think later on we'll delve into that. And then also we have there is there's a difference here. We have the labor bill in Article 23(3) says that children should not be employed at night between ages between 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. The Child Act says children should not be employed between 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. That's another disparity between the two laws. And the Labor Act in Article 23, subsection 4, further prohibits the employment of children who are under 12 years of age. Yet the Child Act tells us that we can employ children, give them light work, children who are 12 years, we can give them light work. So I think as the discussion goes on, we will reconcile these different points.
Thank you so much, Veronica, for that. And I would like to go to Honorable Rose, and please allow me to read her amazing bio, and then I'll go to you, Victoria. Before I ask Honorable Rose questions, I would like to mention that Honorable Rose has a master's degree in peace and development. She has a Bachelor of Family Science and Community Development. She has worked with various UN agencies. She's the former Minister of Gender, Child and Welfare and Social Welfare at Central Equatoria. She's the former Minister of Agriculture and Forestry. Honorable Rose, this takes me to your question. Why is there such an increase in child labor and street children in South Sudan? What are the policies and strategies that are being put in place to tackle this issue?
Thank you. First of all, the issue of child labor and street child. The child labor is a global issue, but when we come to the context of South Sudan, as already Mary has mentioned, this is within the families and within the agriculture farm. And if we come to the specific of urban areas, it is the children who are washing cars, working in the restaurants, and also working within other small work that they are not allowed. The reason why there are increased children on the street because of the conflict that has increased in 2013 and 2016, and also our economical situations and social breakdown because of the war, and also the devaluation of our currency, and also the reduce of the oil money that has caused a lot of other economical situations within the family, whereby the people who are working within the government sectors, they are not getting their salaries in time. Because of this, some of the families, the women of the extended family, they send their children to the street to work so that they can earn. Also the polygamy and our customary issues also contribute to this issue. The policies which has been there is already been mentioned. We have the Child Act, we have the Constitution of the Republic of South Sudan, we have the CRC, and we have the educational bill. These policies, and we have all the other policies also for the early marriage. And we have the strategic action plan and the strategic of the national government, which is from that strategic of the national, whereby the Central Equatoria or the former create their own strategic also for their states. The issue that we have within the policies, most of these policies, there is no much awareness when we come to the states, to county, to Payam, to the Buma, and the cross-cutting within our line ministries of the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Health.
Thank you, Honorable. That was very brief and concise on the point. Next, we need to sort of shift back to what are some of the health impact on labor on street children. Here, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Victoria Chute. Just her brief, brilliant bio. She's the director for the HIV and AIDS and STDI department at the Ministry of Health. She previously worked in Australia as GP for a few years before coming back to South Sudan. In 2012, she became a member of Australia Society for HIV Medicine and a member of Technical Advisory Committee for African Society for Care of Children Living with HIV. As most of you might have seen her, she's a former presenter of SSBC health program called The Doctor, and she is currently presenter of health promotion program on SSBC called Your Health. Lastly, she's a member of South Sudan General Medical Council and advocate for women and girls. So Dr. Victoria, my question to you here is that how does the child labor affect the health of children? What are some of the long-term health implications? And at the same time as well with the street children, what are some of the long-term health impact on them?
Thank you, Nyanton, for the opportunity. Actually, like Honorable Rose said earlier, and also Honorable Mary, child labor is a global phenomenon. In fact, it's a public health issue of concern. And worldwide, estimated to be 250 million kids who are child laborers. And out of them, around 120 million kids are working under harsh conditions. And this has health implications because WHO defines health as a complete physical, mental, and social well-being of an individual, not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Meaning that if you're not socially healthy, you're not mentally well, you're not going to be healthy, even if you are physically healthy. These kids are working under harsh conditions. They are deprived of their childhood. They are working as early as 6 and 7 years. I was in one of the states last year on a field mission, and I went to a hotel nearby where hotel I'm staying. I saw an 8-year-old working with a tea seller. That 8-year-old is collecting the cups, washing the cups, and I engaged with the kid and I asked him, where are your parents? He told me that his parents are outside that city where I'm staying. Like approximately, it takes like a day drive to reach there. And the kid, as young as that, is working so that he sent money to his mom. His mom comes and collects the money. So it's all because of economic situations. These kids often they have their growth and development is not like the other normal kids because of different conditions. Developmentally, they are not like the other children as well. Often they have growth problems. They are underdeveloped and they are undergrowth, and they have stunting compared with other kids. Also, their mental well-being is not like the other normal children who are living with their families because of these circumstances. They're often exploited. They are underpaid. They do hard work that is not corresponding with their age, and that gives them depression and anxiety and trauma. Most of these kids are traumatized. They're unhappy children and not like the other children. Also, many of these kids who are laborers are exposed to hazards. They're exposed to burn. They're exposed to other substances. And because of the circumstances they're in, they are forced to sometimes take substance abuse. That's why you see some of these kids sniffing glue so that they get a bit of, getting out of the situation they're in. When it comes to street children, most of street children get injuries, and engaging with the pediatric hospital of Sabah, most of the presentations coming to the hospital through NGOs helping these street children and street laborers are injuries, starting from minor injuries like lacerations, even going up to deep wounds and even fractures. And most of the injuries are attributed to physical fights with these other street children, and also to exploitation by adults and exploitation by the police. Most of these kids also have skin problems due to lack of water. They don't shower, they don't have enough a place to stay. They're on the street basically, so they don't have that capacity to have a place where they can be have proper hygiene, and they end up with skin conditions. Most of these children also end up, especially street children, they end up with parasitic infections like giardia and other parasites because of eating food which is not clean. They eat from the garbage, and that exposes them to parasitic infections like giardia and amoeba and other infections that you get through the contaminated food and contaminated water. Also, most of these kids get infectious diseases like tuberculosis. They get malaria because of exposure to mosquitoes. And many of them, especially young girls, they get exposed to sexually transmitted diseases, and they're raped. Most of these kids, research and studies have shown that when you ask them about their first sexual encounter, it's either a rape or a forced sexual intercourse by adults in the street or other adults. So basically, these are few of the health problems facing street children and street laborers in a nutshell.
Thank you so much. And that actually takes us to Sarah Quart, who is actually working on the ground with some of the street children. And welcome, Mrs. Quart. Just on her bio, a brief bio on her. Let me just put that up quickly. Okay. Can you guys hear me? All right. Okay. Good. So, Quart, my question to you, I'm trying to pull up your bio here. Okay, so Mrs. Quart is the Executive Director for Women Voice of Hope for the Vulnerable, which deals with street children. She is passionate about making positive impact on the communities and the vulnerable. She is currently pursuing her degree in procurement and logistic management at Kampala University. So my question goes to you, Mrs. Quart. How is the organization helping homeless children in South Sudan, and what are the services that are given to them from your experience? Are you on mute?
All right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all for the opportunity to come on this panel and discuss about the street children and the child labor in South Sudan. Briefly, I would just tell you what Women Voices is and what it has done so far for the street children according to your questions. Women Voices came up during the pandemic, and we thought of helping the vulnerable people, which includes the street children as well. Our target was to help the street children that collect bottles on the road and then go sell them. Our fear was that they could contract the coronavirus from those bottles or those empty plastic that they collect from the streets. So what we have done so far, according to that short period that we've worked during the coronavirus, we have visited so many orphanages that have street children, and we have given them some donations, and we did awareness to them, as well as we have helped some children that needed special needs. We helped them. We went to one of the orphanage called the Sinclair Orphanage, where we launched our initiative, and we took enough donation to them, and we did awareness to the children who were there. There were about 40 children. And then again from there, we went to other different orphanages that like the Good Service Network. We went to Peace and Mercy Orphanage Center. And then also we finally came to celebrate the independence, the 9th independence anniversary with the street children. That was on date 9. We saw that since they are also part of us as South Sudanese, we need to make them feel that they are nationals of this country. So we organized a big day for them, especially for them. we printed T-shirts for them. We bought them shoes. We bought them clothes. We cooked for them that day, and then we celebrated the day with them. So actually, our concern as Women Voices of Hope is to see that the street children do not permanently stay on the street, or they should not be termed as street children, but they are part of us. They are our children too. So we hope to continue helping the street children in South Sudan, as we plan to make sure that we work together with the Ministry of Gender and other partners, at least to resettle these children that are moving on the streets and give them a permanent settlement where they can sit, where they can do their job without, I mean, where they can do other activities that will distract them from going to the street. So actually what we want to do is to help the street children not feel left out of everything that belongs to us in South Sudan. So this is briefly what we have done so far with the street children. And thank you.
Thank you so much. What we're going to do, we're going to leave South Sudan and sort of cross to a different country so that we do a cross analysis of what is being done in other country compared to what we've just discussed in the overview of what child labor and and street children are in South Sudan. I'm going to go to you, Mrs. Dora, Pony Laura. As a social worker living in diaspora, are there cases of children living on the street abroad? And kindly tell us, how is the issue of children it's being handled from your experience?
Thank you. I would say child and family social workers serve important roles in their communities by connecting families with services and monitoring the well-being of children at risk. I live in Norway, and there are no cases of street children because of the existence of the child welfare services that take care of children who might fall out of their homes and maybe be in the streets. So I haven't seen any cases here, but of course in other countries, like in Eastern Europe, we experience children moving out of homes because of poverty and other issues that force them. But social workers assist abuse and neglect and investigations. They help children to place them in safe environments, and they also help to arrange adoption and foster homes for children. They facilitate transitions and assist families through fostering or adoption processes, and reunite children who might have left their families. They also support in school environments in regards to children maybe who are having problems in school and might drop out of school, so they can be able to kind of connect the social workers and the school and the teachers to find out why children are trying to drop out of schools. So social workers under the child welfare services, like where I work, they are guided by the Child Welfare Act, and the child welfare duty is to ensure that children and youth who live in conditions that may be detrimental to their health and development receive the necessary assistance and care at the right time. The Child Welfare Services is responsible for implementing measures for children and their families in situations where there are special needs, like in relation to home environments. And most of the measures that are given are support measures and care measures. For example, if parents lack parenting skills that make them unable to raise children in a proper way, so the Child Welfare Service steps in to give them counseling. Maybe parents with mental health problems, high domestic conflict levels at home is a reason why child welfare can intervene and help the children. And in case parents have also drug or alcohol misuse problems. So these are also cases where the Child Welfare Service can come in and assist families and the children involved. And assistance can be given as counseling or in terms of monetary assistance, or for instance, families with children, or maybe a single mother having 5-6 children and unable to take care of them. Help will be given to the family, to the mother or the father to take care of the children. Some children are initially helped in their homes, And if those measures implemented are not efficient enough, then the child welfare services can take action and children can be moved out of the homes and placed into institutions and foster homes. And these are the institutions that are in place, and the reason why we don't see children in the streets, because of the child welfare that is functioning and taking care of these children. And under the guidelines of the Norwegian Welfare Services, we see that children are entitled to take participate in the decisions that have been taken for their personal welfare. And in case these rights are in conflict with the parents' autonomy, then the child welfare service have to come in and decide. But parents are responsible for providing the care and protection of the children. And if they're unable to do that, like in the cases where we have had where children have to leave their homes, and like in the case of South Sudan, if we had a very functioning child welfare services, then they would take care of the children. The child welfare services is obliged by the law to provide whatever necessary help and to ensure that children and youth receive the care that they need. And this care is based on three principles. The best interest of the child, that's the first principle. The child welfare service must base its actions on the best interest of the child. And in case these interests conflict with those of the parents, the child rights must take precedence over the rights of the parents. The other principle is the biological principle. The child welfare services tries its all best means to keep the children in the homes and in the family atmosphere. But if this doesn't work, then the child will be moved out of the home. So the state tries to facilitate the child's development within the family. But if the family is dysfunctional, then the child has to be moved out. The third principle is the principle of least intrusive forms, that they try not to intrude into the family and remove the child by all means. So they try all services before they decide to move the child out of the home. So in case of the children living in the street, as I told you, we see it in Romania. Because of poverty also, we see children living in the streets and begging, and families also use their children to beg, maybe to go and work and earn money for them to be able to help them. And also we see that children are being used in trafficking, young girls are being used in prostitution. So it happens in other countries, but in Norway it's not a common practice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dora. Before we go, we have some questions from the audience, but I'm going to go back to you first, Honorable Mary. And my question here is, at the ministry, what measures are in place to make sure that the Child Labor Act that is being implemented? I know it's the Ministry of Gender, but as them being the employment, just to make sure as well children are not being employed, or there are no legal issues with women. What are the measures that are in place?
Okay, in the Ministry of Labor, we had the Inspectorate of Labor, and usually they go out to workplaces to inspect. And we have noticed that in the formal sector, for formal employment, there are no children who are formally employed. But most of the children who are working are children who are on their own, or they are helping, their parents in family business and so forth. What we are doing also in the Ministry of Labor is that we have vocational training centers under us, where we try to give skills to children who drop out, so that they can now learn some livelihood skills, and then they can join the labor market after that. This is what the ministry is doing currently. We have, and we are targeting the youth, not really children, but from the age of 14, they can be trained in these vocational training centers to learn some livelihood skill. We have some traditional skills like building, carpentry, electrical installation, tailoring. We give some computer skills, and yeah, we give these skills, and after that, the youth can join the labor market. We have secured some funding from the Netherlands, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, through UNDP, and we are currently implementing a project that is targeting 10,000 youth in South Sudan in 5 states. Another project that we have is also funded by the African Development Bank. And in this project, we are looking at the skills that are for the youth to be employed, employable skills that can join straight away the labor market. And so we are looking at the hospitality industry, train them so that they are able to work in the different hotels in South Sudan. One aspect is that most of the workers in these hotels are people from the region, and we want to make a shift. We want to train South Sudanese so that they are able to take over the work and phase out people from the region who are working in jobs that, according to the Labor Act, should not be occupied by aliens. But given the situation in South Sudan, we find that the jobs that should otherwise be for South Sudanese are taken over by people from the region. And we in the Ministry of Labor are trying to correct that situation, train our youth, create awareness, and so that they are able gradually to take over. We are facing challenges as a government, given the fact that our budget is limited. We have good plans in place, but it is difficult for us to implement given the limited budget. One thing also is the situation in the country. With the revitalized peace agreement and the government of national unity, we are hoping that there will be relative peace in the country and that people can go back to the land to till the land in agriculture and as a means of livelihood. This will also, I think, draw most of the people away from being in the streets and from being in the streets. So I think I will end here.
Thank you, Honorable Mary. Before I move to our next discussant, you have a question from Angelo. And Angelo is asking, Juba Street is full of children that are doing a different type of work, such as hawking, bus conductors, working in restaurants and bars. Does the Ministry of Labor consider this as hazardous to the children? What is the ministry plans on this?
Definitely, for children to be exposed in the street is a danger, and working as in the buses or in bars is definitely dangerous for the children. They can be subject to abuses or any of the things that you can expect on a minor being on his own in the street. So I think for the underage, for children, this is the docket of the Ministry of Gender and Child and Social Welfare. So we are actually dealing with children who are now coming, who are joining the labor market, not underage children. And I think this is the program of the Ministry of Gender, and because child protection is in their docket and they're supposed to have program for that. For us as labor, we don't have a program for children as such, but if we find that somebody is employing a minor, he can be reprimanded by us and warned not to employ children. But the bottom line here also is that these children are going to the streets because of poverty, because nobody is taking care of them, because of issues that they are facing where they are staying, whether with their parents or guardians. And again, I think the Ministry of Gender, Child and Social Welfare should be doing something here and not labor as such. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, this brings me to Honorable Rose. I've seen you nodding your head, and you've worked in the in the Ministry of Gender and Welfare. Do you want to add or comment something on that, and then I'll give you a follow-up question.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on what Mary has said. Yeah, it is within our topic. This is one of the biggest issues within the child protection. We have, as I mentioned earlier, these children, they are there because of our economical situations. And some of them, they are staying with their relatives, or they have migrated, forced migration because of the war. And when they came here, they have to survive. They have to have strategies of survival. So the ministry has just awareness for them in case if they come across a problem. Then in this case, the Ministry of Gender will interfere, and also the social workers will support them, and then they will be guided. But we have the biggest problem within the Ministry of Gender is the budget. This is a ministry which is having a lot of other responsibility, but the mandate of the ministry itself is not clear to many of the people of the Ministry of Finance. So there is the projects which is in place, but the implementation of it, money is not coming from the Ministry of Finance.
Okay, thank you. Just as well as we talk about child labor, let's sort of shift a bit to the street, to the homeless. I like calling them homeless instead of street children. Does South Sudan have children home where these street children are taken out of the street and to children home? And what are some of the criteria that is used to sort of decide which kids go to children home, and if we do have a children home, and which that don't?
Within the context of the government, we have street homes which are owned by organizations in collaborations with the Ministry of Gender, using the guidelines of the ministry and the policies of the ministry. The Ministry of Gender does not have a home by itself that is specifically, it will cater for the street children. We have orphanage. Also, we have one orphanage of the government, which is also mixed with the children which are brought by abduction, which is being abducted, and it was returned, and then we will keep them in the orphanage because there is no any other place where we can have. We have a big land which was been given to us by the government, but it is a shopping list project because the government may not be able to build that center given the fact of the situations that we are in. But the Embassy of Japan were interested in the project through our National Ministry of Gender in collaborations with the Ministry of Education, so that this center can be a unique center within 5 states within the Republic of South Sudan, in Central Equatoria, in Western Bahr al-Ghazal, in Western Equatoria, and in Upper Nile, there is 2 places, in Rang, and then also in Malakal. And this is where there is a lot of other also trafficking, given the fact that South Sudan is a lock country, whereby other institutions or other organizations are doing their other jobs inside the South Sudan, and they are having this trafficking, which is going on.
Thank you so much. That's very brief. This takes me to you, Veronica, with your experience. And the question here is: are there national or policies in place to regulate orphanage and care centers in South Sudan? Please give us some example.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to say that orphanages, care homes, orphanages specifically, they are supposed to be a last resort option because we're supposed to encourage children to be brought up in a family setting. So when we look at the Child Act in Article 131 specifically says that, it says what I actually just said, that orphanages shall be a measure of last resort in situations where a child has no one to take care of him or her. So our laws do not encourage setting up of orphanages, but in situations where you fail to get somebody to trace any relations of a child, then we have that setting in place, and the responsibility is placed on the government to actually set up such a home to take care of this child until maybe he or she is adopted. If a relative is not found, then maybe these homes keep the children until when they reach the age of majority. And then I'd also like to point out that we have what you call interim care centers. An example of that is the CCC. It stands for Confident Children Out of Conflict. CCC started as an orphanage, but these days I think it's doing both services. It's serving as an orphanage and an interim care center. Interim care centers are supposed to be temporal, and I think most of them are run based on humanitarian principles of do no harm, non-discrimination, and all those things. Like I said, if there is an orphanage, or like Honorable Rose earlier on mentioned, that there is a government orphanage, that government orphanage is regulated by the Child Act. And other orphanages are regulated by the Child Act as well. And that starts from the registration process and how they should be taking care of the children, and things to do with monitoring their activities. I think the State Ministry of Labor and the State Ministry of Gender and Child Welfare takes care of that. I think that's all I have to say in in relation to what laws we have in place to regulate orphanages.
Okay. And before I move to the health implication and the others, well, Honorable Rose and Honorable Mary, since it's mostly on your docket, if somebody wants to add anything on that, please feel free to contribute into this. Yeah, you're muted, Honorable Rose.
I just wanted to add, this is a clear examples of where we are living. I agree with what Dr. Veronica has added. This is a reality. We are doing that for the registrations and all that. But within the orphanage, also, we are having children which are abducted. The government cannot take the responsibility of these children if they are reunified. Meanwhile, we are searching for their relatives and all that. We cannot take care of these children, so we have to put them inside the orphanage because this is the government place. We have other organizations or the other orphanage which are having collaborations with the government. Also, sometimes we can take them there for security purpose or for protection, so that the people who have abducted them may not just come again and abduct them. The issue is that for us to maintain or to rehabilitate the orphanage that we are having as a government is a big problem. For instance, we have conducted an assessment of all the orphanage within the states and also the street homes which are working. We are working with the social workers who we give for the orphanage, which are really doing a very good job because also of the turnover of the social workers within the ministry. They have also other organizations which we like to take them and all this. But as she has mentioned, some orphanage are doing better, and some orphanage like St. Vincent de Paul and home for the street children. These are church-based organization and international Christ. The church-based organization, the street homes are very good. They're keeping the standard. They're having a very good collaborations with the Ministry of Gender, but also they have their own shortcomings. Because if the funding is stopped, the sustainability of this is becoming a big problem, because they will not be able to continue with the number of the children that they have. So they will see that also they will try to drop the children, like the House of Judah, for instance. They have previously like 65 children. At the moment, they are having only 50. And these children now also is becoming a threat within the community where they are living, because their survival is becoming also a problem. This is what I just wanted to add. And
no, thank you, Ms. Before we move to a different topic,
yeah, I just want to add that as Ministry of Labor, we are not really, our plans are not for children, but rather to get youth into the labor market. But currently, we have a vocational training center here in Juba, and we are accommodating some child soldiers that were demobilized, and they are accommodated in the center, waiting to be reunified to their families. And it is the Ministry of Gender and UNICEF that approach us to have those children accommodated in the vocational training center. So this is we are doing as collaboration among the government institutions. But I know one thing, that the Ministry of Gender was having a plan of placing these unattended children or the orphans with relatives, with families, that they can be part of the family, and then the Ministry of Gender will be giving them some cash transfers. But I think this project was interrupted with the crisis in the country. But this is one of the plans that the Ministry of Gender is having to address the issues of orphans or children who are on their own, to be attached to families and then supported financially. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to go to you, Dr. Victoria. And what are some of the actions the Ministry of Health are taking and the development partners in terms of dealing with child labor? You've mentioned various impact on them. So what is being done? I'll give you 2 minutes in this, or 3 minutes, so that we can close, so that we can move to our next segment. Thank you.
Thank you, Nyanton. Actually, the Ministry of Health, like I said earlier, is providing service to street children, but generally, street children and child laborers have low access to health services, and they have low health-seeking behaviors. So most of the kids coming to facilities to get treatment for minor injuries or infectious diseases are brought by national organizations helping them, or international organizations. The Ministry of Health is trying its best to offer services to these children at no cost. most of the health facilities in the country are offering basic services. Treatment for malaria, treatment for parasitic infection is for free. But sometimes when it goes beyond that, when it needs more medical attention and more like it's something that cannot be dealt with at the facility level, then the Ministry of Gender comes in, and that requires a multisectoral approach. Actually, the health sector with a budget of less than 2% of the national budget cannot do much. And that calls for more funding and to the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Gender, and equally Ministry of Labor, because these three ministries are very gravely underfunded and they cannot do much. And most of the support is from development partners. So UNESCO is supporting street children, UNICEF and Save the Children. There are other number of national organizations also supporting them. And this is where they collaborate with the Ministry of Health to make sure that these kids are attended to and their health issues are looked after.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. Ms. Okwot, you work with the street homeless children. For you, based on your experience with the organization, are girls more vulnerable to these situations from your experience? Ms. Okwot, you on mute? You on mute. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Nyanton, for that. Indeed, girls are more vulnerable to the street life because some girls become victims of sexual harassment, and they are used for commercial sex. That's why they are so risky, and it's so risky for them to be in the street. But I don't see most of the girls being in the street. They are not more than the boys. The girls are few. For example, during the celebration of the Independence Day, the number of boys were more than the number of girls. And I think why girls are less in the street is because some girls understand the life of street, and they prefer being home. Whatever the case may be in the home, they prefer being home than being in the street. So really, girls are more vulnerable to the street life because they get harassed sexually. Sometimes they're like, when they see themselves in the street and they see other girls, some girls have this kind of heart that I should not be in the street. At least let me go and work, maybe a better job or any small job, maybe in the restaurant. So some girls rather stay in the restaurants to work rather than being in the street. And so because also some girls think, instead of me being in the street, let me go home, or let me go and maybe be used for sex. They go into prostitutions. For example, I know of one area in Juba here, it has more girls who are into that act. And those girls, when you see them, they look more like street kids, but they have come out from the street and they have joined that life of being a prostitute, going out for sex and money to live. So basically, girls are really more vulnerable to the street life.
Thank you. Honorable Rose, is that the experience for your work as well with through the ministry? Are girls more vulnerable than the male?
Yes, I agree with what I just wanted to add more. The girls are very vulnerable. Their number is very less, but there is other homes like Divine Mercy Home for the Streets, which is taken care by the Combonians church ministry. They have taken only for the girls with few boys. They are vulnerable in so many things. Even some of them who are having menstruations, they cannot get any support. And I think some other national organizations in collaborations also with UNICEF, they are trying also to support them. But some of them also, they move out of the street and they are becoming something called takeaway. Some people with the cars or with boda, they will just come to locations whereby they will be picked from there and then they will be taken and of course they will be misused in other places. And also maybe we had recently a live case whereby a small girl were being killed. She was being raped by many people, and then also her neck was being twisted. And these are evidence of what's going on. They're more vulnerable.
Thank you. Before I move to Mrs. Dora, we want to hear what's happening in Norwegian society. I would like to first actually go to Veronica. Veronica, we've heard the issues around street children, around child labor. What are the roles of parents? What are the legal roles of parents? Guidance in this. We've seen what government does, but here as well, these children, right, they come from an institution which are homes. What are the parents' roles and the guidance here?
Thank you once again. We know that parents are the primary caregivers of children. They're supposed to provide children with their basic needs. Those are the needs to health, education, shelter, and food and the like. And we also know that parents are supposed to instill good morals, good character and behavior in their children. And they are supposed to ensure the safety and security of their children. And then I'll take you back to the Child Act. The Child Act in Article 39, 39 Section 1, it spells out the clear roles and duties of parents towards their children. And I'm going to read. Parents are supposed to protect their children from neglect, discrimination, violence, abuse, exploitation, exposure to physical and moral hazard, and oppression. Parents are supposed to provide good guidance, care, assistance, and maintenance to ensure survival and development of their children. Parents are supposed to ensure that the child receives full-time education that is suitable for his or her age. And it further says that parents, this is with regards to children with special needs, because we have seen a lot of those children with special needs also on the streets of Juba. Parents are tasked with the responsibility to arrange for them alternative care type of education, which should take care of their needs as children who are not able to address the normal, attend the normal school system. With that, I'll move to the duties of government. The Act also places roles and responsibilities on the government when it comes to children. And Article 70 says that the government should make sure that children is provided with alternative care in his or her community, i.e., this could be care by relatives or foster placement or an adoptive family. Still, like I said before, our Act does not encourage this issue of orphanages, because the best place for a child is to be brought up in a family setting. And the Act further places also responsibilities on the local government, and the local government is supposed to safeguard and promote the welfare of children. It's also supposed to promote good upbringing of children by their families through the establishment of suitable family-oriented programs that can help these families to nurture the children the way they're supposed to. The general or overall responsibility placed on the government by the Act is to protect children from discrimination and take action to promote their rights. It's also to promote the welfare of families and protect the family as the fundamental unit of society, to provide assistance where parents fail to do so, and to take action to raise awareness on the rights of all children. Protect children from all forms of exploitation, abuse, and neglect. So the Child Act is really very elaborate on the roles of families towards their children and the role of government towards the children. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So now let's cross over out of South Sudan. Let's go to you again, Ms. Dora Puni. As South Sudanese, we are all over the globe, part of the conflict. We have heard that children are going astray in places like Australia, Canada, Norway, Egypt, and many other places. What are some of the challenges, do you think, from your experience, either from where you are or from other countries where South Sudanese are? What are some of your experience facing South Sudanese children who have lived through trauma and war in diaspora?
Yeah, thank you. I would say when families resettle in host countries, like many of us in Norway, Canada, Australia, and the US, we come with hopes and wishes for security, stability, and freedom, opportunities for education, work for ourselves and for our children, and a hope for a better future and protection from everything that threatens, and make it be able for us to have a future in our new homes. However, many experienced this transition to be very turbulent, and turbulent in the sense that they have to adapt to new cultures and in the host countries that they move from. Like, for instance, in the case of Norway, learning a new language that is totally different from the language that one knew from before, and trying to understand the norms and negotiating through the cultures and identities to be able to integrate. Children and young people, they adapt quicker, and they might start learning the languages that they have to start faster than their parents. And they gain knowledge about the host country, and they begin to explore the spaces outside of the homes, and which might be unknown to most parents because also they don't know the language maybe, and they're not out there where the youth are. They try to fit in with their peers, they get to a sense of belonging. And then through school and interaction with other children, they start to see the world from a different perspective than what the parents do. And this actually they start to exercise their rights to freedom, freedom of expression, and self-autonomy. And it is common in most Western countries, like Norway, that young people might move from home when they reach the age of 18. And this is a culture that is not so common to us. And for many parents, it can be threatening. But some of young people really wait eagerly to become 18 and move out of the home. Others are not so keen about it. They want to wait and stay longer in their families. But from my experience working with young people, most youth that kind of thought from very early age to be responsible, they tackle the transition very well. Like when they're 18, they know what to do and not what to do, and they can be able to move out of the home and make it. They are responsible for the choices that they make, and they know that the freedom that they have comes with responsibility. But the consequences of using that freedom without boundaries is very detrimental for their future, and that's when we see youth maybe experimenting already very early age alcohol, or maybe early sexual debut, and adults who don't understand that become a problem for them. And parents living in that context, for example, in a country where, like Norway, where you don't understand the language, they see this transition very difficult. Now, when parents lack the choice or control over the change that they are going through, and even because of the traumas of wars, then they see it very difficult to support the children in adapting to the new context that they live in. We see, for example, establishing new networks becomes a problem. studying or getting employment. We see that unemployment is a very big problem, especially when you don't speak a language, like in the case of Norway. And again, many children and also families experience racism. And for youth who are trying to find a sense of belonging in the countries that they come from, or maybe born already in those countries and they are discriminated against, it goes internally and affects their mental health. So it becomes a conflict again when the parents at home do not understand the children, So it is, as parents, we have to help our children to navigate through life from the early childhood and even in adulthood, and especially for the youth that are living, have lived a little of their lives in South Sudan maybe, and then now living in a different and Western context, which is totally different from theirs. As parents, our role is to support them in the choices that they make and be very curious, instead of being very controlling, that we should be curious of what they do and why they're taking the decisions that they're making. We see children breaking out of their homes because they feel that their parents don't understand them. Like my daughter, who is a 16-year-old, she'll tell me, Mom, you don't understand me. Then I tell her, but help me understand, because when I was 16, I grew up in somewhere, a different setting that has, and I need to understand from her perspective. So we as parents, we have to be open to their spaces. We have to be inquisitive, ask them what they're doing in a curious way instead of being very controlling, because we force them to leave home, to stay in the street. They don't tell us things, but they tell others because they feel that we are maybe traumatized with our own experiences of war and we are not ready to understand the situation. So what forces our children, be it here in Norway and other places, to leave the home is because the traumas that we have gone through, and again, because of the things they're going through, but they feel that we as parents, we are not understanding of their situations. So thank you. That's very important.
Thank you so much. And these bring us to, you guys have already all mentioned what are the challenges. And so I just want to give you as well opportunity to sort of, if you have more challenges, and as well your recommendation. What do you think? We've discussed all the issues, all the problem, but how can we move forward, right? What are some of the recommendations you think either the Ministry of Labor, either the Ministry of Gender, or as well the Ministry of Health, and as well some of the organizations are doing work. So here I'll start with Miss Sarah Akwot. From your experience working with the street children with the organization, what do you think should the government do to solve this problem? I think Akwot, you are on mute, Mrs. Akwot. Unmute yourself. Okay. What advice? I'll go to Ms. Dora. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. To me, what I think should be done for the support of these street children is that the government should allocate more funding or more money to the Ministry of Gender so that they will be able to facilitate all the needs of the street children since they are under the Ministry of Gender. Another thing also, the parents should be advocacy for parents to take care of their children in their homes so that the children do not go out of their homes. Also, what I think we should do as the national NGOs, we should focus a lot in the street children. We need to support them by setting up some rehabilitation centers so that these children can be able to have somewhere they can be allocated and given also services as they need, like education and other things as well. So all in all, all I could say is that it should be our collective responsibility as South Sudanese to take care of every child that we find on the street and make sure that we give them the right information to stop them going to the street. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll move to you, Ms. Dora Pony. How do you, from your experience in Norway, what are some of the best practices that South Sudan can learn from and handle this issue of Taliban and street children?
Thank you. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, in Norway, we don't have street children because of the functioning child welfare services. And I think that should be also my recommendation in regards to how we can tackle the issue of child homelessness or child street children in regards to putting a structural welfare service in place and functioning services. Like Sarah could say, my recommendation would be also to have enough funding to be able to let these services that are already there to be functional and involve the social workers on outreach programs to reach out to the youth that are out in the streets to see why they're out there and give them the help necessary. Because I think with the initiatives like reach out outreach programs for children, will be able to help them understand why they're out in the streets and if their parents are lacking the skills or the facilities to be able to take care of them, to be able to provide them with those facilities. And I think these are the outreach programs that are here in the Western world that helps in regards to regulating the number of children living out in the streets or having to break out from homes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to you, Ms. Veronica. What are the challenges? And as you've already mentioned, most of the challenges, but in your recommendation, what do you think is the way forward that the government or the parents or the guardian should take? Ms. Veronica? Okay, I think we'll come back to her. I'll go to Dr. Victoria. What are some of your recommendations?
Thank you. I think one of the biggest challenges is data, lack of data, because even the Ministry of Health, Department of Child Health doesn't have data on child labor and street children. Equally, the Ministry of Gender has recently conducted a research led August. The report is yet to be shared. This data is important for decision making and for programming. So there is a need for the Ministry of Health to look into research or surveys on the impact, the health impact on street children and street laborers, so that it informs decision making and programming. Definitely, a multi-sectoral approach is a way to go. Ministry of Education, Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Gender, and the Ministry of Health need to work collaboratively, because in Ministry of these kids need education, and of course, research have shown that they're very unlikely to go through the normal pathway of education because they missed out. They need alternative education pathways, vocational training, and other catch-up that they can have the skills, because ultimately they will end up growing as adults with low literacy level and no skills to compete in the market, work market, and ultimately increase the cycle of poverty, because they will not be able to raise up their kids, and the cycle of poverty continues. And that will also impact on the economic growth of the country. So having alternative pathways through Ministry of Education is very important. Also, funding is a challenge. Ministry of Health and Ministry of Gender. These two ministries are gravely underfunded, and they need we have to advocate, all of us, for more funding for these ministries so that they are able to tackle issues of street children and child laborers. They also need a social security fund in place for vulnerable communities or vulnerable families, so that they are able to access healthcare, because most of the government facilities offering healthcare are not, they can only give you the basic. But if you need more treatment, they cannot able to offer you that treatment. And that's why a social security fund is very important for this kind of population. And I think that's all I could contribute.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Victoria. Dora, you just wanted to add one more point before we move to...
Yeah, just a concluding remark. I would say, yeah, it is our collective responsibility to take care of our youth, and as parents, we have to support each other, and especially in the diaspora. And I think it's very important that instead of being judgmental, we try to be understanding and help by offering ourselves as a community to be mentor for the children that need it, and to assist, for instance, single mothers who have many children, and it's not easy to take care of children when you are abroad here and with no one to support you. And to offer knowledge about the new country where we live in and be able to, and how things function in regards to language as well. And our youth they're trying to tell us something by the behavior that they do, because in being rebellious, they're trying to send a message. So it's very important that we are understanding and try to find out why they are behaving the way they are. By shaming and stigma doesn't help, it will only push them away and further from us. So as the African proverb says that the child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. So we shouldn't wait until our children burn down, either end up in the street or burn down houses or indulge into self-harm or suicidal behaviors because of the way we treat them. So let us give our children and youth the warmth that they need, the unconditional love, and the non-judgmental support that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move to you, Veronica. I'm leaving with Honorable Rose and Honorable Mary because as part of the government as well, these are recommendation goes to you as well into what you do. So Veronica, what are some of your way forwards before we move?
Yes, I basically have 2 recommendations to make. The first is we need to review and amend our laws, because when you look at our laws, I don't think they address the realities on the ground. Because now if we look at what the children are currently doing on the streets, most of those things are not regulated by our laws. Secondly, I think all children at one point are all vulnerable to abuses or neglect or something. So we need to build a strong child protection system that involves all actors. And all actors includes the child himself or herself, the immediate family, and other institutions. At the moment, our interventions actually start from international organizations, then the government, and most of the times, the family, who is the immediate caretaker of the child, is not included in the planning of policies and all these things. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much. I'll move to you, Honorable Mary, just briefly, and what are your recommendations, please?
I appreciate what panelists has recommended. As for the government of South Sudan, I think we have good plans in place. And like I mentioned earlier, it's the issue of finance. Thank God that now in this revitalized government, they are doing some reform in the financial institutions that are generating revenue for the country. And we hope in the near future, they are putting structures and system in place to regulate the allocation of the budget to the various government institutions. And I hope things will change, and all the institutions concerned with the protection of child will have enough funding so that they are able to implement the programs they have. And it is the responsibility of the government to allocate enough budget to change the situation in the country, because no matter what help we are receiving from the international community, other organizations coming in, if South Sudan as a government does not allocate enough funding, we will not see change. Like currently we are experiencing in the civil service that salaries are not paid. Now, if parents are working in the civil service and they are not receiving salaries in time, and this is going over 4 or 5 months without salaries, how do they expect to support their families? And then some of the children are going to the streets because they don't find the support they need in their family. And I think this is a very big task for us as nationals of this country, to find ways and means of keeping the children in the first place at home, not to go to the streets. and again, trying to resolve the issues of the children that are already in the street. So I think it is a task for all of us to work together to find the solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ms. Honorable Rose, that's if you have any recommendations, way forward.
Thank you very much for the opportunity and also for the panelists for their contributions. I just wanted to put two challenges which are facing the government, especially in regard to the issue of child protection. If really the government wanted to improve the issue of the street children and the child labor, we need to have staffing, and we need also to train the social workers and motivate them so that at least we can have people who can continue in the ministry. At the moment, the Ministry of Gender, the turnover of the staff is very high. They are getting better positions within the organizations. And also you cannot just say that they cannot just go for better position. But as a national, I appreciate the support that they're giving, even at the moment now that they are working without the salary, but still they have the zeal of working those few ones who are remaining in the ministry at the national level or at the states level. My recommendations will go, I will side with what Dr. Veronica has said. Given the fact that now we are in the revitalized peace agreement, we have the opportunity of reviewing our constitutions, and also we have to review our laws so that it can really go in line with our situations on the ground. As already the other people have said, we need to improve the budget of the Ministry of Gender. Most of the work that is now done by the Ministry of Gender is with the collaborations with the UN agencies, our partners, and also the national organizations. But we need the national organizations to implement some of this work, because the other national organization or international organizations, they have the funds, but they want also to be implementers, which is also is a challenge. We need also to create awareness for the other policies so that at least the line ministries, we can have the same languages, and also we can have the same collaborations like the Ministry of Education for the bill, also the Ministry of Health or the health of those children. There is a collaborations, but we have different partners, and those partners, they work according to their own mandate that they are working with there. So for us as a government, we need these partners to understand that all of us, we need to give services, we need to protect our children, and these are all South Sudanese. So if they are working with the Ministry of Education or with the Ministry of Health, also it will have the same impact within the Ministry of Gender.
Thank you so much.
Reinforce the existing laws that are already in place. For the issue of the other organizations, for instance, there is the organizations which are working within the oil sectors. They are helping within the issue of the street children. We encourage this, and we encourage also that a portion of money from the oil has to be put aside to improve our situations within the service line ministries, if it is education or health or gender or labor. We need to have solidarity among us as South Sudanese so that we can improve the issue of the child labor and also the street child or the street children. which is becoming a big issue the government is aware of, and it is evidence, has already been said. There is a lot of children out of schools, whereby that the UNESCO is supporting, and also with other, because there is other children which are unreached. So we should really appeal that more support from this organization, the UN agencies, which are mandated for the children to work more, like Save the Children, like Child Right, like African or Netherlands Child, or War Child, or the other ones, which are specifically their mandate is for the children. They should collaborate. We have the task force for the child protection. We need to improve it better so that at least it can help in access for the information, in access for the report, and also for the data that it can help. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable. What a way to close our session. Thank you so much for the informative discussion. This is amazing. For me, I've learned so much, and I hope as well our listeners, our viewers have learned a lot from your depth, experience, and knowledge. I would like to give our thanks on behalf of the management of South Sudan Women Intellectuals Forum, the UN Women, for always being supportive and supporting the forum. And to our viewers, thank you so much for sticking with us. And I hope as well you've learned so much. And it's a bye-bye for now, ladies. And I'm sure we'll meet again in our respective area, and this conversation continues. This 1 hour and 30 minutes, it's not enough to discuss and exhaust everything, but at least it gives us an opportunity to sort of open the discussions way forward. And we hope we'll have another session again to sort of dwell in depth about the issue of child labor and street children, because these are our next generation, these are our children, and these are the leaders of next tomorrow, and we have to be able to have conversation with them. Thank you so much, and I wish you well in all where you are. Thank you.
Thank you.